Well, we're getting towards evening time now. The sun is directly across the canyon at this point, and now we're starting to get some really nice late afternoon golden light that is just raking across these sandstone formations back here behind me. And the light is, it's a little much right now. It's we're still, I would guess, probably about 30 minutes away from ideal light, but I wanted to show you really quick, what it is that I'm photographing up in here. It's like this castle of these hoodoos, these fantastic formations. And of course, there's just many more up this way too. And I've been kind of walking around very carefully, trying not to disrupt anything, paying attention to every single step that I make, walking through here. And this is what I'm photographing here. I kind of came up on this, and I've been looking for a good angle, where we get some good side light, but also some interesting shapes and forms in the image. And so there's this nice circular line, I feel like, that's especially nice with like this little hoodoo right here, catching just a little bit of that light. The last little bit of light there, and how it curves around here in the foreground, and this nice little foreground detail here. This is rather nice. And then it comes around this way, and then up and over, and then up into the spire in the back there. So I'm not taking any chances with this image. I am focus stacking this thing. I am focusing on the immediate foreground right here in front of me, that little bump I was talking about right there, and then of course on that little hoodoo right there, catching that little bit of light, and then going beyond that and just basically going around the circle until we get to the back there. And I would guess I'm probably taking, I don't know, probably like 5 or 6 different exposures here with different focal points. And sometimes focus stacking is the right answer, and it can make a really beautiful image that is, sharp from corner to corner and all the way through the frame. I like that quite a lot sometimes, but sometimes it's, it's not necessary. But since I have time right now, I'm just I'm just playing it safe, just in case, because I don't know what's going to happen later. I think this is a pretty interesting composition. Yeah, I think this is good for right now, and going to take a few more images of this and see what happens next.
And here is the net result, focus stacked from front to back, so everything in the image is sharp from the immediate foreground underneath my camera all the way back into the background. And for this particular image, I felt focus stacking was needed. I thought it would be important to do because of the detail and texture in the foreground. And I wanted to make sure that, that was just as sharp as what was off in the distance, because all of it ties together creatively and compositionally. Otherwise, I honestly, I wouldn't have bothered with it. Focus stacking is not something I typically do. And whenever I do it, as I did here, I typically just do it manually. I don't use the focus stacking mode in my Fuji, even though it does have a mode for that. I've tried using that, but I'm probably doing something wrong because it just creates loads of images. And I don't know, I probably need to sit down and figure out how to let the camera do it for me automatically, but I just do it manually. As for how this image turned out creatively, well, I'm reasonably happy with it. I like the rhythm and flow of the line, how it moves around the perimeter of the frame, which is what I was talking about just a minute ago. I like how that turned out. The light is good. I mean, though I wish it had a little more color and wasn't quite as strong, but I feel like the light and the contrast and the shape and the rhythm and the flow and the feeling of it, I feel like it checks the boxes. I mean, it definitely achieves what it is that, I was trying to achieve when I was, taking the image at that time. But after I took that image, I started looking around for something else to shoot, and that is when I came across this scene here. And at this point, the sun was lower at a dip below the horizon, so there was no longer direct sunlight. It was more of like an ambient kind of glow from the from the western horizon. And for me, this image, like creatively, is more satisfying for me. Like, this is something that I'm more excited about, that I like more, even though it wouldn't surprise me if the majority of people would probably prefer the first image, because it has a little more drama. It's a little more, just visually, it has a little more going on. Whereas this one is more quiet, is a little more distant, and is a little more opaque. It just doesn't feel quite as obvious to me. I think that's probably the best way to put it. And this is the fight that I have with myself creatively when I'm out taking these images, because I want to create images that have drama, that have depth, that have, visual interest and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, for whatever reason, like, I'm always drawn to quieter scenes, to scenes where there is a little less going on. It's more of a mood thing, more of a vibe thing, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. And that is something that creatively I work on. And I'm, trying to create images that don't feel quite so composed, that feel so like, technically executed, which is, what I did with that first image, but something that perhaps speaks a little bit closer to, what it is that I'm feeling and what it is that I'm experiencing and seeing when I'm out there, what excites me about the landscape. In other words, what I see in it.
I might have time to shoot this. The sun is probably about an hour away from being in a good position, because right now it's just simply, it's too hot right now. It's too bright, too much contrast. It doesn't look particularly great right now, but I'm making a mental note that maybe I should come back or if I'm fast enough, there's something else down that way that I want to shoot in a little bit. That's where I left my camera and my tripod in my bag. And right now I'm just kind of like walking around and just doing some scouting just to make sure that there's nothing else here that grabs my attention, that makes the pulse quicken and is more interesting and more exciting creatively than what I think is good, than what I've set up my stuff for back there. I've mentioned this in other videos on my channel, but it's always a good idea in landscape photography, I have found. And I feel like I kind of learned this the hard way. It's a good idea when you see something that you like to like plant your feet. Pick something, anything, whatever it is that you feel pretty good about, and just stick with it. And stick with it through the most ideal light that you can possibly get. And if you then have time to if your adrenaline starts flowing and you want to grab your tripod and run around and take more images, awesome. But at least you have one good thing in the can that you're excited about, that you feel good about. Because the mistake I feel like I made in the past was not settling on anything, and I would just, I would get all excited when the light would start getting good, and I would just run around and I would just take a picture of this, take a picture of that, and just try to capture as many possible images as I could. And my images ended up being a little bit sloppy. And instead of coming away with one strong image or one image that I feel good about, I came away with a bunch of half-assed images, quite honestly. So yeah, just something I recommend keeping in mind. When you're scouting and looking around and thinking about what you're going to shoot. I'm about to go into shadow here. There we go. Much, much cooler. Wow, this is beautiful back here. I'm going to spin you around. Oh man, it's like a cathedral. Oh, all these beautiful shapes. Really, really beautiful. And I can hear up in the rocks up there, there's some nesting birds. Yep, definitely hear some chirping up there. Could be some baby birds up nestled into those cracks up there. But man, really beautiful. Look at this over here. Of course, I don't have my bag or my camera. All I have is this little pocket 3 here. So I'm not going to be able to photograph this, but man, look how nice that is. I think that up there is blocking some of it. And so we're getting just a little hint of light on the front of that. Really, really pretty. That's not a bad shot there. With the little bit of edge light right here. Giving a little bit of separation between this and the wall over there. I took some photos. And, you know, who knows? Maybe I'll come back at some point in the future and shoot that, you know, with a real camera. Nah, I'm just kidding. Well, I think this is turning out to be rather nice. No complaints here. Some nice sunset light striking the right side of these rocks and these mounds and these little bits of brown rock, these like shavings of rock. And then we have the hoodoos back here in the distance. My hope is that it'll get even darker. Well, I know it's going to get darker, but once the sun is down over that hill over there, I'm hoping that we're going to get some color across the stratosphere down this way. And the foreground here in front of me is going to be a little more muted. And it's not going to have this like, you know, really strong contrast that we see right now. Looking like it's hopefully going to be a pretty decent night. Crossing fingers, hoping so. Yeah, huge difference between where it was just like 10 minutes ago when the sun was up compared to what it's like now. Now it's starting to get a little bit softer. Well, actually a lot softer. It's looking, it's starting to cool off a little bit. It's softer. There's not as much contrast in the image now. The highlights have been brought down just substantially. The blacks and the shadows feel a little more lifted now, but we still have some motivated light. We still have some light coming from the west that is illuminating the sides of everything. And so, you know, that's nice. So at least we have some shape and some dimension with, you know, with the elements that are in the shot. And there's some little areas back in here, just some little pockets, some little spots where it's catching and reflecting that light. Because it's like, you know, directly across from it. And it's nice little, you know, just little extra things just to like, you know, grab your attention, little extra things to notice. It almost looks like a cinematographer came out here and like, you know, set up some lights and put them in, you know, particular places. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That's the kind of, you know, vibe that I'm looking for when it comes to light and how light is, you know, is painting the scene, so to speak, how it is, you know, just creating that nice, that depth in the image, you know, as opposed to, well, if we just like turn around and look, you know, directly across, it's all just flat shadow, right? Because it's not getting any light at all. And, you know, I know it's a pretty obvious thing to point out, but that's really, I think, you know, so much of what goes into an image for me is just trying to figure out where the light is going to be, trying to find a good angle relative to that light, and trying to find a good subject within that. And sometimes that's, you know, that's tough to do a lot of times. It's tough to, you know, kind of get, you know, that trifecta, get all three things together at one time. Thankfully, I have, you know, captured a few so far. So I think I'm good for this type of light. But now we're starting to get some of that gradient of light out there in the sky, which is what I'm really looking for. Out there towards the east, where we're starting to get some of that blue and purple and fading into like a little bit of cyan and green, and then finally some yellow right out here, right on the edge. And my hope is for this to get a little less warm, to start getting a little bit cooler, something that's a little more like blue and purple and magenta, maybe with, you know, still, you know, that like little bit of orange there at the bottom. But I want some of this like atmospheric, like green kind of hue to go away, and for the warmth of it to come down, and just for it to cool off just a little bit more, and for the hues to shift a little more in that direction. In other words, blue hour. I just described blue hour. So hopefully that's going to happen. It looks like it is. This is the funny thing about, you know, Western skies. I mean, you never, I mean, they're really hard to predict. I mean, there's so many times in which I've done something like this and it looks like it's going in the right direction and you're feeling it and it's like, oh, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And then the color just goes. I'm not enough of a, or not any kind of meteorologist or, you know, I don't know enough about these things to really understand why sometimes it happens and why sometimes it doesn't.
I really tried to make this subject work. I tried everything. I moved left to right, up and down, back and forth. I swapped lenses, I changed focal lengths, but for whatever reason, I could just never find the composition that I was looking for. As evidenced by my Lightroom catalog here, I shot this thing over and over and over, again, trying to find something that worked. I just couldn't quite get excited about it. For whatever reason, I just felt more frustrated than anything. And very similar to the situation before, once I stopped shooting this and I was able to let it go and take a fresh look at the landscape around me, just a few yards away from where I took this image, that is where I saw this on the ground. And I knew that I had very little time to compose and shoot this. And so I set up a tripod, I focused the camera, I took an image, and literally within like maybe 2-3 seconds, the light was gone. The light just completely disappeared and the landscape just turned gray underneath my feet. And now that I've had time to, go through all of my images from this trip, I can easily say that this is one of my favorites from the entire trip because I love the light, I love the color, and I love the fact that, it is, again, more opaque, a little less literal, a little less on the nose, a little less, location-y. I don't know how else to describe it, but this could have been taken anywhere in the world. And for me, it is just one of those moments that which to me is special and memorable because every time I look at this image now, I'm going to think about that very last gasp of light just before it disappeared and how special it felt and how memorable it was to set up a camera, take this image, and then have the light just completely disappear on me and the image was gone. The moment was gone. And I only took one image of this. That's all I got. Whereas the previous image, I probably shot 100 times. So for me, it's not just, the image itself, the subject itself, the quality of the color and the light and all that, but it's also the memory and the moment, which makes this image stand out for me. But the day wasn't over. There was more to shoot.
Gorgeous evening out here. Look at this beautiful color out here on the horizon. This gorgeous blue and pink, that pastel color. It's just so good. And I'm trying to frame it with these right over here. I think I got the best. I think I got the best light. I mean, right now, it's still nice. Don't get me wrong. I mean, God, this color is just amazing. It's still beautiful, but it was a little more vibrant just like 2-3 minutes ago, and I think I got it at the peak of that color, but man, I just love, borderline obsessed actually, with this kind of pastel gradient. It's the kind of thing that you see, in the American West when you come out to a place where you can actually see the stratosphere from one end to the other. So many places where you can see and catch skies like this. It's just fantastic.
I tried a few different compositions here before the light completely disappeared, and this is the one that ended up resonating with me the most, which, ironically, does not include any of that beautiful sky I was talking about just a minute ago. I completely excluded it, and instead I decided to focus on the beautiful color and texture and detail that was being reflected in the ground. There was just something about it. And I feel like this is similar to the previous image I showed you, where it feels a little less on the nose, a little less direct, a little less, a little more of a mystery. And I like mystery, not just in my own images, but in other people's images as well. I like to add my own interpretation, my own imagination to an image, as opposed to having everything spelled out for me. And so I think in the end, that's why I gravitate towards this particular image here. Quick shout out to Epidemic Sound for providing all of the music you heard in this video. If you make videos like I do and you'd like to get some great music and sound effects for your own videos, sign up for a free 30-day trial for Epidemic Sound. You will find a link to do so down below in the video description.